Going to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the October meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the town of Niskayuna. My name is Keith Frary, and I'm the chairman. We have some folks online. We have at least one present. Thank you for being our audience today. Let's call the roll.
Mr. Hoke?
Here.
Mr. Lateif?
Here.
Mr. Dolman?
Here.
Mr. Daly?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Ms. Pacheco?
Here.
Chairperson Frary?
Here. Just a little bit of information and introduction. As I said, we do have two of the applicants are online. When your case is called, I'd ask you, if you are here in person, to please come forward, speak into the microphone. We are recording this and it's on video, so we want to make sure that everything you say, questions, answers are on the record. We also have folks online, and I'd ask you to please make sure that you speak clearly and loudly enough so that everybody on the board here can hear you. You will, whether you're online or here in person, you will probably have a series of questions that's asked by the board members. Please understand that we're given a criteria of items that we need to investigate, ask questions about. That's what we base our decision on, whether to grant or deny the variance. So please, sometimes there may seem like strange questions or unusual questions. If you are confused or have any questions, let us know. But that's why we ask the questions that we ask, because it's a criteria that we're required to follow. Okay, let's call the first case, please. Oh, I'm sorry, minutes. Thank you, Mr. Lateif. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at the minutes online. Are there any corrections, any changes?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick little typo on line 270, just to delete after the word reasons, the HED.
Hang on just a second, please. On line 270?
Yep.
Okay, so there's
A little correction.
so eliminate the word he on line 270. Is there a motion? Make that change. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as changed, as altered?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mr. Lateif?
Yes.
Mr. Dolman?
Abstain.
Mr. Daly?
I got it.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Chairperson Frary?
Yes, the minutes are accepted as amended. Thank you, Mr. Lateif. Now let's call the first.
The appeal of Stewart Shops, agent for a variance from section Schedule ID, Part 1, CN District Schedule of Supplementary Regulations, Town of Niskayuna, of the zoning ordinance of Town of Niskayuna, as it applies to the property at 1502 Balltown Road, Niskayuna, New York, located in the CN Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District, to construct an addition partially within the rear setback. Schedule ID establishes a rear setback minimum of 20 feet. As proposed, the addition is 9 feet from the rear property line. Therefore, a variance of 11 feet of rear setback distance is required. 10 notices were mailed out, 0 responses. We received a public planning board referral and a county referral.
The county referral was a defer to local consideration, no significant countywide or intercommunity impact. The planning board on October 3rd, 2022, made the following recommendations. Effect on the comprehensive plan. The planning board voted with 6 aye votes and 1 recusal that the proposed project will have no effect on the comprehensive plan. Suitability of use, the planning board voted with 5 aye votes, 1 recusal, and 1 nay, vote that the proposed project is suitable for the use. The board noted that the pre-existing non-conforming building is located 8 feet from the rear property line. The proposed location for the new freezer portion of the building addition that requires the 11-foot area variance relative to the rear property line is slightly more compliant to the rear property line than the existing building, 1-foot improvement. They also noted that the area variance will have no impact on the neighbor since the rear property line of 1502 Balltown Road abuts the interior parking lot of the ShopRite Plaza. No residential properties are impacted by the potential area variance. The board member who voted that the project is not suitable for the use noted their disappointment that the redesign of the building could not be done in a manner that integrated the addition more aesthetically into the main building. The recommendation, the board recommended by a vote of 6 ayes and 1 recusal that the zoning board of appeals grant the requested area variance.
Do we have a representative of the applicant? Could you please introduce yourself and make sure you speak nice and loud and tell us about your application?
Sure. My name's Chuck Marshall. I'm the real estate representative from Stewart Shops. We're, as we've done throughout other instances in the town, we're trying to meet the ever-changing needs of food, quick grocery, and just, kind of everything that Stewart's is known, to offer. This is a kind of a unique instance, though, because Stewart's doesn't own the property here. We're tenants. We had done a previous financial arrangement with Red Cap Fuels, and then subsequently acquired Red Cap Fuels. So we don't or can't go out in search of additional land to make this compliant because we don't own the parcel we're on, and then as Laura noted, we abut the ShopRite Plaza, which isn't willing to sell land, let alone the fact that it sits probably 8 feet higher than us in elevation. I did, or last Monday of this week, we did submit a revised plan. We took the suitability comment that was made, obviously pretty, sincerely. In an effort to change it, we changed the western elevation so that the cooler does look like the remainder of what the building will look like when the building is altered to the hardy board and stone veneer. But I'm uncertain how to share my screen. So is that just the present now button, Laura?
Yeah, so just go to the present now and make sure you select like whole screen. You'll have multiple options and then you're gonna have to click a couple times.
Can you now see the plan?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So this is the proposed freezer addition. As you can see here, the pre-existing building is 8 feet from the property line to the ShopRite Plaza. The proposed freezer addition is 9 feet. To address the suitability concern that was mentioned at the planning board, what we did is we revised the western building elevation so that the stone veneer is continued along with the hardy board, and this is effectively the western wall of the proposed freezer.
Question for you. As a frequent visitor to the Stewart's, two things. One is I noticed the other day when there was a delivery being made that there is some type of, I don't know what to call it, shed, structure, something back there. You know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, so that actually, per the site plan, is being proposed to move to the north. And in between its current location and its proposed location, the dumpster area will be there.
Okay, so this is actually a fixed structure. It's not a separate structure. It's a fixed structure?
Correct. It's a panelized freezer system, and it would be, there's a small slab that it's placed on, and then it's tied into the building.
Is the entrance to this in the building, through the building, or is it from the outside?
No, it's through the building.
Now, this is on the side that the air pump is on the outside, correct?
I'm fairly certain that that's what this apparatus is here.
Okay,
The delivery area should be over here on the southern side. I'm just gonna switch to Google Earth for 1 second to see if I could find the air machine because it's not labeled on the plan.
So I believe the air machine is actually proposed to be moved. The planning board discussed that. It's currently on the side of the building where the addition is proposed, but they're proposing to move it to parking space number 5 because it won't fit when you put the new addition on there.
Okay, and Laura is correct because there it is. Can you see the screen now again? Can you still see my screen?
yes.
Yeah, so it's highlighted here, so she's correct. It is proposed to move to parking space 5.
If you've parked towards where the side of the building where the proposed addition is, there are some parking spaces there. If you park there, it's in its present form, it's already a very tight fit to back out, especially, well, you can't really if somebody's at the air pumps, but if there's going to be less space there, are you still having parking spaces, or are you, I see that looks like you're put some curbing in and altering that?
Yeah, so 2 things are happening. One, the air machine is moving, and again, I thank Laura for pointing that out. But the second thing that's happening, and you could see it here, is we're going to restripe the parking spaces and move them to the west.
Okay.
So yes, someone will be parked here, but
You'll still be able to back out and have enough room backing out to turn.
yes, I think that distance is approximately 20 feet.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, good evening, sir. How are you? Richard Green.
How are you? I'm just checking that distance to make sure. Yeah, so from the rear of parking space 13 to the proposed freezer is 22 feet.
Great, thank you.
Are you losing any parking spots with this proposal?
No, we're just shifting the ones up in the northern section to the west. And that is provided, if you look at note 1 on the bulk table, there's 13 today and 13 proposed. One of the things that should also be noticed is that we don't count the spaces at the pumps, which are definitely used for parking.
Right, so you're moving everything to the left, so that means there's going to be cars parked closer to Balltown Road, correct?
Approximately two feet. That area right here just shows the difference in striping.
Do you have any plans to move the sign that's at the corner that's closest to Balltown Road? If you're moving any
No,
parking spots?
No, we do not.
with regard to the unit that you're putting in, what type of noise does it make?
It's effectively the same, freezer cooler that we have today. It's just moving outside so we free up space inside.
Yeah, I hear you, but what I'm asking, forgive me if I was inartful. Does the unit make any noise that someone could hear if they're outside of outside of the building?
It's basically the same two compressors that are on site today is what I'm trying to say. The unit itself doesn't create any noise because it's just refrigerated or freezer insulated panels. The compressors that are already on site are going to be repurposed for powering or, temperature of the new unit.
Sure. So are you telling me that if the
So,
application, if I may, so you're telling me if the application is granted, this business won't be making any greater level of noise in the neighborhood?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Yep. And just so, again, I'm hoping that you could see the screen, but the Google Earth version has the two, compressor and condensing units on the eastern side. And again, in the relevant issue of noise, as Laura spoke, there's no residential parcels that are affected, but this also sits, 6 to 8 feet below the parking lot grade of the plaza.
Using that photograph you had, you see the dumpster area?
Yep.
Where is that going to be, or is that still located there?
Yeah, so the dumpster stays effectively where it is. This small shed moves to the northern side of it. And then I'm just going to switch. The hatched area goes away because we're installing a small retaining wall.
Okay.
So this area here goes away. This shed moves to it. And we're going to put a small retaining wall in here. One of the problems we're having with the building is that all the water from the plaza sheds down grade and to the building. So we're hoping that by doing this, we can install a wall and direct everything into this drainage structure you see here.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have a few questions for the applicant. This is Katrina Pacheco. I notice on the plan that was submitted, the proposed site plan, that in the chart provided the existing parking spaces number 14. And I just wanted to bring that up as point of observation of the plan that was submitted for my colleague, Mr. Green, who was asking the question about loss of spaces. So to my eyes, it seems like we are losing one spot on this. Can you comment on that?
Oh, I did not. I took that to be 13 for 13. I took note 1 to be 13 for 13. So I apologize.
It appears
For-
you're still within the
yes.
required number, though, right?
We are within the required number. What is happening is that by the installation of the retaining wall, this space is removed. So I'm going to highlight that.
Thank you.
So that would have been space 14.
Correct.
Okay.
As
Thank
well,
you.
just one more, two more questions. One is about the shed that's being relocated towards that corner where you say a lot of the water is coming from the adjacent property.
Yep.
And I just want to ask the team here, is there any issue with placing that shed closer to a property line or any setbacks related to that?
I do believe the building inspector checked that. I believe that the shed is under 120 square feet, so it can be 5 feet from the property lines.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question for the applicant is really related to the picnic type area where you said there was a drainage structure. Is there any adverse effect on the kind of eating area? I know a lot of people like to get ice cream and sit right there and so forth.
Yeah, that was one of the again, the comments from the planning board. It's not very visible in this photo, but there's picnic tables up in the on the gravel area for the drainage area. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a guide rail in along these parking spaces and then run the picnic tables as this one is here. And we're showing 4 of them on the proposed site plan.
Thank you.
I apologize. Obviously you guys see a lot of applications. When I do these, the things like the parking and the air machine, I get so focused on the actual setback that I miss some of the other elements. So I do appreciate you helping me out.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard? Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion? I'm going to take care of this. I'll move that we grant the variance as requested. First of all, this is a property that's been before us many times for varying reasons. Stewart's has been a very, very good neighbor and a very good friend of this town's. This particular project, to anyone who frequents this property, it's a very tight property and space is at a premium, certainly parking space, and I appreciate the efforts that Stewart's has made to accommodate viable parking areas and to rearrange the space that it has. I think that in terms of other options to either reduce the need of a variance or to eliminate the need of a variance don't exist on this property, given the layout as it currently exists. Any visitor, you know that there is a hill behind this Stewart's, which goes up to the parking lot at ShopRite Plaza and also where the TD Bank is located. So there's very little options in terms of where you can put this freezer. Obviously, it's an item that's needed by the Stewart's in terms of its business. I don't think it's going to have an adverse effect on the neighborhood. The applicant has indicated that the noise will not increase beyond what is there now and what exists now. Obviously, there's no residential areas near this, the closest being across the street and further up the street several blocks away. There's no adverse environmental effect. This is going to be erected on a parking area, so it's not necessarily affecting the green space. And Stewart's has also made provisions to actually increase picnic areas and whatnot with the protection of a guide rail to make sure that those people at the picnic area are protected. For those reasons, I move that we grant the variance as requested. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it for all the reasons stated.
Any discussion on the motion?
Just, Mr. Chairman, just a question about, I heard from the applicant that they rent that property. So this variance will go to, just confirming, this will go to the owner of the property if Stewart was to not rent that property again. Correct, Laura? Okay, so So this will go with the owner of the property, not Stewart. Just want to make sure that that's on the record. that
Yep.
it's-
So noted for the record, and I appreciate that information. You're absolutely right. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes.
Mr. Lataif,
Yes, all the reasons stated, and I just want to say that usually Stewart, they do a lot of work behind the scene to figure things out, and I'm assuming they willingness to redesign everything just to make it fit and work is appreciated.
Mr. Dolman,
Yes, for the reasons stated with the additional thanks to Stewart's. I drive by that every single day, and I appreciate the efforts in keeping the aesthetics more uniform.
Mr. Daly,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
Yes, while there are certainly many factors, the one that strikes me the most is that the requested variance, I do not believe will alter the essential character of the neighborhood one iota.
Ms. Pacheco,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Chairperson Ferrari.
Yes, congratulations, your variance request has been approved. Good luck with your project.
Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
And for the record, was approved 7-0. Please call the next case.
The appeal of Lisa Lowry for a variance from section 220-4 and section 220-18A2 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 937 Mohegan Road, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District, to construct a shed in the front yard. Section 220-4 defines through lots as having two fronts or frontages. The lot is a through lot as it is oriented between Mohegan Road and Algonquin Road. Section 220-18A2 states that the accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard of any lot. The proposed shed is an accessory structure. The zoning ordinance defines a front yard as the yard situated between the main building and the front line of the lot and extending to the full width of the lot. As proposed, the shed is located between the main building line and Algonquin Road. Therefore, a variance from this section is required. 12 notices were mailed, 1 response.
We are the Fellows, Ward, Shirley, Craig, and Dot. We have no problem at all with any building they desire to put on their property. Very nice neighbors, happy to help out any way we can. Property concerning 937 Mohegan Road, Dorothy Fellows.
Thank you. Please step forward, speak into the microphone if you would, please. Introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
Sure, yes. Hi, my name is Lisa Lowry. I live at 937 Mohegan Road, and I'm here today to ask for a variance to install a shed in my rear yard of my property. The rear yard, it goes right to the next street, so it is considered a front yard. So I need a variance to put a shed in what I consider my backyard.
Tell us a little bit about the shed you're looking to put in.
So it's just an 8x12. It's got a metal roof. It is painted a nice gray color. It has metal doors. It'll have cute little windows, is what I like to say. And it fits the character of the other sheds in the neighborhood. We have some other, there's 3 neighbors that are next to us. One of them has a shed that looks just like ours. And then you go 2 more properties over and there's a shed that looks very similar to the one that I'm proposing.
You have a photo or of a shed in your packet. That's what you're proposing?
That is the exact shed we're purchasing. Yeah.
Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question for you. I'm Katrina Pacheco. Nice to meet you. You said that a few of your neighbors had similar sheds in their backyards. Are they also properties that have through
Yes.
properties?
Yes.
Thank you.
Laura, on that aspect, do we have any other variances that have been granted here for that type of thing?
Yeah, we've granted several variants. There's a block between Algonquin and Mohegan that are all through lots. And we've had 1 or 2 come before the board in the last 5 or 8 years that I can remember.
Similar circumstances?
Yeah, similar circumstances. The homes on that block face Mohegan, but they all have frontage on Algonquin.
Thank you. Questions by the board?
Yeah, a couple questions, if you don't mind. I'm familiar with the area there, and I know it's a loop, goes from, you cross on Route 7 to Mohegan, you go down, then it becomes Algonquin. There's one in the corner, that they have a pool, and that's also through, they got these sides, right?
Correct.
That's the corner one. So are you the one next to that one, or a couple more?
No, I am, so that one, then there's 1, 2, 3, I'm the fourth,
You're the fourth, so you're closer to Route 7.
correct,
Okay.
yes.
And the neighbor that has a shed, when you put your shed up there, where's it gonna be compared to where their shed is?
Okay, so on the screen here, you can see where I put the orange is where I'm proposing to put the shed.
Yeah.
If you go up from that, you'll see that white structure.
Yeah.
That's the property of next door. That's one of their sheds. Now, if we go to the bottom of the screen, that's another property below that blue line, and you'll
Okay.
see the brownish structure that's kind of aligned. That's another shed from them.
Okay, so everybody's putting it basically, I know it's called the front, but they put it in the back if
Yeah.
there was no alternative.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, the property above mine on this, that actually is not a through lot, but our shed will be in the same distance back from Mohegan that their shed is. But theirs is not a through lot. I just want to make that clarification.
Yeah. And I know in your application, you mentioned, and just put on the record, you mentioned that even if you put it to the side there, there's not enough 5 feet to place the shed.
No,
for that.
there isn't. It's too small. It wouldn't fit.
And even that shed, what size is that shed that you,
An 8x12,
8 by 12, so that's 96 square feet.
correct.
So usually it's 120 square feet if we were doing the normal size of shed. You mentioned also about the drainage for the shed. What does your neighbor do for the drainage and so on? You guys you got a big property, it drains on the property?
Yeah, we actually have a drain that goes, it's, I don't know how to describe it. So you see where I say trees and foliage blocking
Yeah.
from Algonquin? We have a drain right on our property, right there. So from our house down to about that field area, there is a little bit of a slope. So everything underground water drains to the back there, and the drain was there when we purchased the property. So I don't know what they do, but we don't have any water issues coming from them.
Can you see your neighbor's shed when you walk in on the street? Because I know you said with yours, you have a lot of trees and stuff that barely you can see it.
No, from the front of the house, I don't see anybody's
You
shed.
don't see it. Okay, thank you so much.
You got, I'm Vince Daly. I see it on the shed, down from the corrugated roof. You got a gutter gutter with a drain pipe on both sides.
Yes,
Where is that water gonna drain to?
right onto the stone that we're gonna be putting under there. So we're gonna use some stone to level it with some concrete blocks that the place that we're buying it from has some patio blocks to help us level it. But it'll just go right into the gravel that we're gonna have on the ground, which will go right into the ground, and then hopefully right to our drainage that we have.
Now, are you in a clay area or a sand area?
That's a very good question. That I don't have the answer to. I think it's more sand,
Okay,
but I don't know. Sorry.
so then the water would dissipate into the sand, because it was clay, it just lay there.
Yeah, I think it's more sandy.
Okay,
Digging in there. Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions by the board?
Just if I may.
Please do.
Good evening, Richard Green. When you stand on Mohegan and face your structure, will you be able to see if your application's granted the shed from Mohegan Road?
Barely.
And that's because of the shrub line that you've described to us?
Yeah. So where I want to have it is closer to the one, the top property line on this picture. So it's the northern side of my property. Along there, we have trees, the hallway, then there's some shrubs out near the front, and then there's a porch on my northern part of my house. And around there, we have all sorts of ground coverage. And with a little bit of slope, you'll really see it.
You know, and the shrubs that you're referring to And trees, do they lose their leaves in the wintertime?
Not all of them,
All
but some
right.
of them do.
So all year round, there's going to be at least some of the
Yes.
shrubbery that would, to some extent, block a person viewing the shed from Mohegan.
Correct.
All right. If you'll humor me, let's go to the other road, Algonquin.
Yes.
Now I want to stand on Algonquin and face your structure. Just for the record,
Yeah.
what would a person, if they were so inclined to be on Algonquin and look toward the area where you are asking for the shed toward your house, what would they see?
They would see nothing but trees. They wouldn't even see my house. You have to be on my property in order to see anything on my property.
So here we go. We all have our little favorite things, and I'm looking at the picture attachment C, the shed.
Yeah.
It looks like a nice shed, but I see lights on the shed, and I'm just curious about the lights, and I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
As beautiful as they look in a picture in daytime, to some people, perhaps your neighbors,
Yeah.
bright lights in the middle of a previously unoccupied spot might be disconcerting.
I'm
So-
glad you brought it up though, because we're purchasing it with lights because it was a pre-made on the lot good deal. We have no intention of running electric.
All right, so that's not an issue.
No.
And you're indicating to us it's not your intention to wire it up in the future and put Clegg lights on your shed there, right?
Nope, not at this time. We have no plans to run electric.
Just another thought.
Yeah.
There are other sheds that you've told us about in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And I'd like you to compare the height of the other sheds to the shed that you're proposing.
Sure. So I've not gone on to my neighbors' properties to measure, but if I have seen one of them painting it, I know the height of that individual based by just walking past them and saying hi. So just seeing them buy it and standing by this shed, it is, without measuring it completely, but about the same size, height as the sheds in my neighborhood.
Thank you so much for your patience in answering my
Correct me
questions.
if I'm wrong. On the shed, yeah, that's what I want. On the shed, this is your neighbor's shed?
This is on the lot of the vendor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this here, from point A to point B, this is lower than that roof there.
That might be the angle of my photo.
All right. But it looks to me like it's lower. Your shed's lower.
The shed hasn't been installed yet.
This-
Yeah,
That's
but-
on the lot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other questions by the board?
Just forgive me, this is my only chance to ask. Did you talk to any of your neighbors who have sheds?
I did not, no.
Did you talk to any of your adjacent neighbors to see if they have any issues with you having a shed?
I did not, no.
Other than we did have the one letter.
But we have the one letter in the record. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Just very briefly on the letter that was received, where is that property located to yours?
That is to the south, so the picture that was up, it was on the bottom.
Okay, so it was the property adjacent to you south of yours?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience who wishes to be heard? Hearing nothing, or online? Hearing nothing, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion? Mr. Lataif?
Mr. Chairman, I am gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion to approve this variance. And I'm gonna go through the steps why, and we have a criteria. I usually like to follow it. So whether the benefit can be achieved by other means feasible to the applicant. The way I look at this, it can't be done any other way on this property. The applicant looked on the sides. There's not enough space to be able to put on the side and have the 5 feet space that required by the town. Also to the back of her house, unfortunately, this is a unique property. We got a lot of those on the board, and we have some sheds we have approved on that street because of the uniqueness of the property. So can the benefit be achieved? No, but the best way you're gonna achieve it is by putting it in the back of the house, which is considered front. Is it undesirable change in the neighborhood? It's not undesirable at all. All the neighbors have sheds. It's gonna be fit with everybody's shed on the street, and as the applicant mentioned, you will not be able to see it from the streets anyway. Whether the request is substantial, actually, this is the smallest shed I've seen. It's not substantial. It's smaller than 100 square feet, so it's not. Whether the request will have adverse physical environment effect, it's not going to have any effect. Everybody who has a shed in there, she's not cutting any trees. She's not doing anything to damage the property. Also, is alleged difficulty self-created? It is self-created, but unfortunately, again, I go back and say that the property that she has, forcing her to put the shed in the back, which is considered the front. So for all these reasons, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to approve this application.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes, I'll just note that because of the amount of foliage, the shed is very well hidden from Algonquin Road. So I don't believe it's going to have any undesirable effect on the neighborhood in addition to the other sheds in the neighborhood. And with respect to the difficulty of being self-created, I agree with Mr. Latife that all applications are self-created to a certain extent, but your rationale why it was not self-created included in your application, I think is particularly germane in the sense that you have 2 front yards and there's really no other place to put the shed. So I don't necessarily see this as being self-created by you, but yes.
Mr. Latife,
I'm going to say yes and just add one more thing that we also did get a letter from the house on the south of the house vouching to have the shed.
Mr. Dolman,
I'm going to vote yes for most of the reasons stated, but I do want to state that I believe that this is a substantial variance. We are granting a structure, an accessory structure, to be built in the front yard of a property. However convoluted the definition of front yard might be, it's substantial. But on the balance, I vote yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
I vote yes for the reasons stated, although I'd never want to quibble. I do believe it is substantial, but that's just one factor. And for all the other factors that mitigate in favor of me voting yes on this application.
Ms. Pacheco,
Yes, also for the reasons stated, as a balance of all 5 criteria, this is the right choice.
Chairperson Ferrari.
Yes, for all the reasons stated. I would also note that this board has approved at least 2 other variances of this nature, as well as one very close by across the street on Rosendale Road in the front yard, a large garage. So I think for those reasons, as well as the reasons stated, I vote yes. Your variance is passed 7-0. Good luck with your project. Enjoy your shed.
Thank you so much.
Please call the next case.
Appeal by Saxton Sign Company, agent for variance from section 220-22A11 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 3602 State Street, Niskuna, New York, located in the CH Highway Commercial Zoning District, to construct a pylon sign between the street and the building line. Section 220-22A11 of the zoning of the code restrict signage from being placed between the street and the building line. As proposed, Dunkin' Donuts would have a pole sign located between the street line and the building line. Therefore, a variance from this section is required. 18 notices were mailed out, 0 responses. We received a county referral.
Schenectady County deferred to local consideration with no significant countywide or intercommunity impacts.
Could the applicant or the representative of the applicant please introduce yourself and tell us about your request?
Good evening, everyone. Darren Katz with Saxton Signs. We are requesting a variant to put a standing pole in front of the Dunkin' Donuts, which is against ordinance. There's having a freestanding pole between the sign and the storefront. You guys know that road. I know them not as well as you know the road. And that road does have a division in towns with different code. But on both sides, the road on both Collins and borderline, pretty much every single property road has a freestanding sign in the road, and Dunkin' Donuts is really just have a little bit more visibility because of all the other on the road.
You provided us a rendering, I think, in your packet. That's the proposed sign that will be put up?
Yes, sir. Just a simple 9.20 square feet, internally illuminated.
Is there, this will be internally illuminated?
Yes, sir.
This may sound silly for a business on State Street or on this particular road. Is there a time when the sign will be lit and then not lit?
Generally, signs are put on a timer, so if a town specifically requests anything, that can always be obtained and then sought through the. Generally, most businesses run their business hours.
The reason I ask, and for the life of me, I can't remember, although I've been in the Dunkin' Donuts many times. There is off of Albany Street residences back in that area, but it appears the height of this particular sign and the location, the building will shield it from any residences on Albany Street?
Yes, Dunkin' Donuts was very accommodating. You guys have seen me before. I do permitting for the consultation with me. I said the least obtrusive sign, the better chance we can have the board. Those height, not trying to stick with the height signs and some of the Ford dealer lowest shop, keeping it low building and keeping it at a smaller square. Thought was going to be helpful for our request.
It appears that we've been given a picture of the Dunkin' Donuts, and then superimposed on that picture is the proposed sign. Is that the height as it relates to the building?
Relatively. I mean, that's not specifically in scale. I mean, this picture is not completely flat and that, but it is based off of signs and portions of.
Just as a point of order, Laura, we do have, I know, a zoning ordinance regarding the number of signs that someone can have in relation to their business. Is this in conformance if the new sign is put in?
In the commercial highway zoning district, they are allowed to have one pylon sign in addition to the facade signs. So they are allowed a pylon sign, but it doesn't allow it to be between the face of the building and the road.
Right, no, that I understand. I know we've run into some very small businesses who exceed the number of permissible signs in or on their buildings. I just didn't know if this is in conformance even with the pylon.
With
sign.
number of signs, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Other questions by the board?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, how are you tonight?
Could you briefly comment upon any information you may have with regard to how this sign might further enhance traffic safety?
You know, it's fun to say that I was at a variance the other evening with Albany. Basically, one of the most valuable sets of any sign in traffic control. That is a crowded. There are several distractions for drivers as far as other businesses, entrances and exits, cross. Thus, some people traveling at excessive speeds. So the more warning you can give any person of a location of what they possibly are looking for, this is for them to be able to get over into the proper lane on their turn signal times, and have enough time to slow down without hampering or the ability of drivers of the flow.
So in sum, would it be your thought that this sign would help with traffic and not be an imposition or a burden on traffic?
Absolutely would help with traffic.
Mr. Katz, thank you for your time.
Not a problem. Thank you for yours.
Laura, with respect to your representation that a pylon sign is allowed in this district, where on the image would the image with the rendering of the pylon, where would it be authorized? If it was just not within the building line, if it would move closer to, where in that picture, you see what picture I'm referencing? Where would they be able to place it without it being, so if it was in that location where the cursor is right now,
So you,
outside of the building line, would it be authorized there?
yeah, somewhere around here it could go.
Okay, so my question to Mr. Katz is why does the sign have to be at its current location as opposed to up slightly outside of the building, of the line of the building, so as to not necessitate a variance at all?
Well, the majority of a code signage calls for a 15 to 20 foot back on signage. That is if highway poles happen to be driving off road contact, and it also.
Mr. Katz, I can't hear a word you're saying, sir.
Could you?
It's cutting out. Your feed's cutting out. I think you have valuable things that you're going to tell me, but I can't make it out.
I apologize. Can you hear me now? It's like a commercial.
It's cutting out like every third word.
I don't know anything else I could do.
Okay, just go ahead. You sound pretty clear now.
Darren, maybe just try signing off and on. Sometimes that resets the you should just be able to sign off and then back on again. We really can't hear you.
My volume or like exit?
No, I think I can hear you now.
Is it better?
It's your connection. It's not, you're loud enough. It's just your connection is not strong enough. So I can't hear a consistent, I'm only getting every third word. But you sound strong now. Why don't you try again?
All right, I will try to talk slower, and you can stop me if I break out. So one of the main reasons that the New York State codes for signage, the NMS do, is because they usually suggest a 15 to 20 foot setback for signage, freestanding signage on a road. That is both for the visibility for traffic to be able to see the signage, and it's also to keep the sign far enough off of the road for any safety hazards, sign falling, somebody hitting it or anything like that. The sign as proposed currently sits back to 31 feet. So if we set that sign back off the side of the building and further back, we would run into the situation of having the light disturb the neighbors behind us, which we were trying to avoid, as well as the sign not really having a purpose, because you still wouldn't be able to see that sign until you were right on top of the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It also appears that if you were to put that sign over closer to the entrance, that it'd be within striking distance of somebody who lost control of their vehicle and, as they were coming in a hurry to get their coffee, and could actually hit the sign. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Other questions by the board?
I have a few questions for the applicant. It does say that there is a 10-foot setback from the property line. That is from the property line along State Street, correct?
I'm sorry, it says a 10-foot setback?
Yes. On the page that shows the image of the sign and the picture of the building with the sign imposed over it, yes, on the upper right-hand corner, there are some descriptions of the sign. It says 10-foot setback from property line.
So that would be a 10-foot setback from coming towards the entrance line. From the actual property line, it's 31 from the curb of the, or from the, sorry, the curb building to the street is.
Okay, and from the side property line, so between the Dunkin' Donuts area and the next door neighbor, I can just barely see a property line there, but how far is it from there as well? It seems like it's almost centered on the building, but just want to clarify where it's proposed.
Sorry, I shuffled paper and misshuffled, and now I know where my plot line went.
We can definitely hear you better when you have your phone picked up.
Maybe it's getting reception through me. Where did the plot line? I do not have that information in front of me. I apologize.
Okay, so if we can better describe it as from the east side of the Dunkin' Donuts building, how far over to the west would it be? So away from the exit lane.
I do not have access to that information. If you guys have that plot plan up, I can't.
Yes, Laura is sharing that on the screen here. I don't know if you can see the screen that we have.
Yeah, I can see the screen that you have, but I can't make out any of those numbers. If you guys, I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, approximately how wide is the building?
The building is 26 foot.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that it's the proposed sign location is at least 10 feet from the east side?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess I'll just have a recommendation on the lighting and timing of when the light is on or off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board?
Just a quick question. What's your hours you're open at Dunkin' Donuts?
I do not know. I would say I have no clue what a Dunkin' Donuts hours are. I do not frequent Dunkin' Donuts.
The only thing, you mentioned earlier that that sign will be on during business hours. What business hours we're talking about?
I said, when the question was asked, I said I did not know. I said that there could be a requirement and we can work with the owner to fill that. I said generally businesses keep their signs on during their business hours. And it's, you know, most businesses that close maybe at a 5 or 6 might run their signs till about 9, 10 o'clock at night.
They are open from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., Mr. Lateef.
Okay, thank you.
Every day of the week.
Also, Laura, just,
Are you a Dunkin' Donuter?
Laura, on Walton Road, we have approved some of those signs, and I know there was some restriction on maybe when the business was closed and they turn them off. I remember a couple times we did years ago,
Yeah, we have done that with signs. A lot of the pylon signs on State Street are actually pre-existing non-conforming, which is why I think they exist between the building and the building line and the street line. So we actually haven't weighed in on a lot of the pylon signs, but it is typical for the board to set hours of operation when it's adjacent to residential neighborhoods.
Yeah, I don't know much about those pylons, how bright they are at night, or not. But if it helps you guys, even reducing the amount of the utilities to pay and be able to turn them down if the place is closed, that would be good too.
The lamps in which we're using on the new pylon are new LEDs, so they're actually more efficient and they're not as bright as the current bulbs sitting on in the wall sign.
All right. I like what you said earlier about when drivers driving down the street, they'll be able to see the sign and then they can yield left or right, depending which direction they come in. And that sign will help. I didn't think about that before, but have you did any study on that, or how did you come up with that reasoning, if you don't mind sharing with the board?
There are a lot of studies on signs and traffic safety. There are a lot of studies that are done on like sizes of signs and letterings in relation to speed and travel, as well as studies on size of signs and letterings, speed of travel to distance from property line and things like that. Not the most interesting things in the world for most people, but if it's your business, it's your business.
All right, appreciate the answer. Thanks.
Not a problem.
I have one more question, if I may.
Please.
The size of the sign is shown as 39 inches high by 8 feet long. How does that compare to the signs that are on the building, just for consistency so that we can understand?
They are the size of the signs on the wall. The front sign on the building is 39 3/4 high by 76. And the side is 51 by 100. So we're smaller on both.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions by the board? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard or online? Hearing none, is there anyone that would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I would move to grant this request. First off, we're in a highly commercial district. To the extent that there might be some residential concerns, the applicant is placing the proposed sign in the middle of the front, so you can't see it from the back. So also the fact that it would be hard to achieve the benefit that the applicant's looking for here by placing it anywhere else. We had a discussion that, yes, there might be a place where you could put it where you wouldn't need a variance, but then you're kind of undercutting the value of the sign, and also potentially placing it in a place where it could be a problem for residents on the back side of the commercial facility. As far as an undesirable change in the neighborhood, we already got signs. The testimony and information is there's already signs that are indeed, for better or worse, grandfathered in or been there for a real long time. And this is not going to be, if granted, the one sore thumb sticking out. In fact, it actually kind of, oddly enough, fits into the character of the other signs present in the immediate vicinity of this commercial neighborhood. Is the request substantial? Perhaps. will have an adverse physical or environmental effects. Actually, it may have a good physical effect, in my estimation, based upon the testimony that you've heard, that it may actually help drivers out, not only find the business, but more importantly, safely find the business and navigate that portion of State Street into the business. And is the alleged difficulty self-created? Perhaps, but it's not determinative. For those reasons, I would move to grant the application.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, I have a few items that I'd like to just mention. This applicant is working for the property owner, is not the property owner. So again, similar to the earlier application for Stewart's, this is an application that goes with the land and not with the business that is operating on the land. And the other item was the condition potentially to have the sign go off and on, dependent on the business hours for that business.
Unfortunately, that condition would have to be part of the motion that's made before this board, and it's not. So unless there is,
Can I amend the motion?
well, you can't. We have a motion on the table that doesn't contain that. Now, we haven't voted on the motion, but the motion has been made by Mr. Green. If he would like to amend the motion to include that, he could do it. It's entirely up to him. Otherwise, we'll need to vote on the motion that's before us.
Mr. Chairman and Ms. Pacheco, thank you. You've raised a wonderful point and opportunity for me to move to amend the motion to include that the lighting be contemporaneous with the reasonable business hours, and that, you know, when you need the light and the sign, it's on, and when you're not operating the business and you don't need the light, it's off or appropriately dimmed.
Second.
Oh, well, we're not at that point yet. Thank you, Mr. Dolman. Sir, you've heard the discussion that's before you. What I'd first like to ask is, would you be willing to amend your application to not only include,
I don't mean to interject, but I think we can just do it as a conditional granting of the variance.
that's not the application that's before us, council. The application before us does not contain that condition.
But I think what council's indicating is that we routinely place conditions on applications.
We routinely ask the applicant if he would be willing to amend his application for that. That's all I'm asking at this point. So let's just go with that. Thank you, council, but let's just go with that. Sir, would you be willing
can I-
to,
One question, or am
Sure.
I not allowed to speak at this point?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, are there any current stipulations on their existing signage for lighting hours?
There are in this town, in fact, this board has passed such, if I'm
Oh, no,
not
no,
mistaken.
I'm saying for this property currently with the signage they have, because they have that side sign that definitely would be seen by the neighbors. I'm just more curious because of the electrical configuration that may have to be worked out for the owner.
Good question, but unfortunately, those signs did not require variances that I'm aware of.
They did not.
So
Okay.
because those signs did not require variances, they were never before us, so there wouldn't be that type of condition. I
Gotcha.
do believe that, I don't know if it was one of the gun shop or the coffee shop or somebody along that road that we've approved a variance for. We also did condition business hours, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it's not an abnormal request. I was just, like I said, I was more curious just for the client's own electrical setup. So should we set it as like an hour before business hours and an hour after business hours?
That's up to, did we decide what the business hours were? 8 to 11.
Well, I was just looking
I-
up at Google. I was just looking them up on Google.
Well, no, that's all right. I
Yes.
mean, I think,
It says 5 a.m. to 8 p.m.
so if it's at 5 AM, you want to turn the sign on at 4 AM?
I do understand the concern in the neighborhood and everything like that, but there is also a safety concern of employees coming and leaving the property. And lighting in a parking lot and things of that nature do provide for safety.
I appreciate that, but that's not the purpose of this sign, providing
That-
lighting in the parking lot. I
Okay,
believe if we look at the pictures of the property itself, you have lighting, pole lighting that I don't know if it's on a timer. I don't know when it's on and it's off, but you have pole lighting which serves that purpose. This is purely a sign to advertise the business, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, so the question that I have before you, are you willing to commit to
Yep.
this sign being lit during business hours, meaning 5 AM to 8 PM?
Yes,
Okay. Mr. Green, the applicant is willing to amend his application. Are you satisfied with that, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I am.
Thank you very much. So before us, and you're on in a second, before us, we have a motion to grant the variance with the provision which the applicant has agreed to of having the sign lit during business hours, 5 AM to 8 PM. Did I get that right, Laura? Thank you. We have that motion before us. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Thank you, Mr. Dolman. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
Yes, I would just like to note that I believe that asking the applicant to amend his application unrelated to any particular variance that could be applicable, there is no variance that would require him, or he wouldn't be required to adjust the lighting hours by virtue of the town code. So it's really a condition that's being put on the applicant, and therefore asking him to amend the application unrelated to his request for a variance, I don't know is appropriate, but I'm just noting that for the record. I don't know that it affects the outcome of the matter.
Thank you. It does not, Mr. Hoke, but your concerns are placed on the record. I think it's unnecessary. No further discussion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Hoke,
Yes, with my noted concerns about the procedure.
Mr. Lataif,
I'm gonna vote yes, and I wanna thank the applicant for his willingness to amend and work with us on the lighting for the sign when the business is not working hours.
Mr. Dolman,
I'm going to vote yes, and I'd like to add that I believe this to be a substantial variance. You'll probably find me consistent in putting a structure where a structure is not supposed to be, I find to be substantial. But on the balance, I vote yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Pacheco,
Yes, also agreeing with my colleague, Mr. Hoke, about the procedure, but on the balance, yes.
Chairperson Ferrari.
I'm going to vote yes. Let me comment that the procedural concerns would have been better suited to have been dealt with the initial application. The applicant who is the most affected by this is the one who I think is in the best position to agree with altering their application, which he was willing to do and work with us, which I appreciate. I think if you look at the photographs that have been provided to us, it's very clear the amount of signage and other structures which exist in the general area that the proposed sign is going to be placed, road signs, telephone poles, other signs, and anyone who frequents this area up and down the street. There are innumerable signs. I don't think this is going to change the character of the neighborhood. I don't think there's an environmental effect. I certainly appreciate the comments by the applicant on safety and the placement of the sign in combination with the hours, places it squarely shielded from any potential residents, if they may exist, behind this particular property. For those reasons and all the reasons stated, I'm going to vote yes. Your variance request is granted 7-0. Good luck with your project, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good night and go Yankees.
Good evening, sir.
Any items of new business that we need to address? Laura and Linda, our next meeting is
In November, we have at least 2 cases.
November 16th.
Yeah.
It's early.
Okay. Any other items of business? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.